Do you remember where you were when you heard about the shooting of Trayvon Martin?
Or how about when the news broke about the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting?
Or when news began to break about the separation of families at the U.S.-Mexico border?
These highly publicized societal events have the potential to shake the foundations of our very society, yet little is known about their effect on organizations and the employees within them. What is a megathreat? We define megathreats as large-scale, diversity-related episodes that receive significant media attention.
In our paper, we discuss the influence of these megathreats on organizations and the employees within them. We focus on a particular type of megathreat, highly publicized instances of police violence enacted against Black Americans. This is because these events elicit visceral reactions, especially from people who share the racial identity with the victims.
Even President Obama, in response to the Trayvon Martin shooting, said,
if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon.
So what happens when group members see a megathreat? On a routine basis, most individuals are likely to enact only the one identity that is considered most relevant to their situation. So when an individual exits their personal space, they turn off these personal social identities and instead, on entering work, turn on their organizational identity. For minorities, this on-off switching process might prove to be particularly difficult because they perceive their personal identities as being misaligned with the professional environment. So under normal circumstances, they are more likely to disregard or mask their personal identities while at work. But megathreats challenge taken-for-granted notions that we live in a predictable world. As these events are perceived by affected group members as unfair and have traumatic implications, these individuals may hyper-focus on their social identities. Thus, the social identity previously suppressed at work becomes activated even while at work, an arena in which an individual's organizational identity is typically at the fore. In turn, both these incompatible identities become chronically activated, leading to identity conflict or interference. However, we argue that because megathreats concern all members of a social identity group, affected employees will also engage with members of their group to make sense of these threats. We posit that these group-level processes then interact with individuals' internal experience to kindle a process called identity fusion, in which individuals experience the reconstruction of the boundaries between their organizational and social identities to experience a deep, visceral feeling of oneness with both groups.
So, what are the outcomes of identity fusion? We suggest that because identity fusion keeps individuals' social identities at the fore, even at work, that it motivates individuals to engage in pro-group behavior on behalf of their group, even when these behaviors are risky to themselves. We suggest that these behaviors can be both task and interpersonally relevant. These behaviors are pro-group voice, or speaking up on behalf of one's group, and relational bridging, or building high-quality connections that infuses parts of your social identity into your work relationships, even with work colleagues that aren't members of your identity group. One prominent example of an employee engaging in pro-group voice after a megathreat is NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick's decision to take a knee during the playing of the national anthem before football games. Kaepernick has described feeling compelled to voice his concern about the injustice and brutality routinely faced by fellow Black Americans at the hand of police, even while continuing to enact his role as an NFL player. We also suggest that there are processes and structures that organizations can construct that will empower employees to act more audaciously. The first is developing compassionate leaders that are compassionate to their followers' suffering. The second is actively building a climate for inclusion. And the third is ensuring adequate demographic diversity of employees within the organization. Thus, while megathreats are overwhelmingly negative events, we suggest that these events may ultimately lead to positive change in organizations when minorities are empowered to display and share their social identities at work.